Hey, welcome to the Win All Day, Everyday podcast. My name is Barrett Kropp, and I'm joined by my co-host, Justin Simpkins. We have I am so excited for today's guest. Yeah. None other than CFL, Saskatchewan Roughrider legend, Mr. Kerry Joseph, the MOP, the most outstanding player in the CFL in 2007. Of course, the Grey Cup champion. Kerry is going into the Louisiana State Football Hall of Fame in June this year. He is a CFL legend, an NFL legend, played with the Seattle Seahawks, was recently coaching for 4 years with the Seattle Seahawks, and now he is an assistant coach with the Chicago Bears, the team that has 2 top 10 draft picks, including the number 1 draft pick. And he's here on the podcast today to talk about his journey through high school sports into university and on into the NFL. And some of the things that he talked about in terms of just being a great leader and being able to deal with adversity and handle that and come out resilient. I think it's so powerful as he continues to talk to us today about leadership. So let's hear what he has to say.
As a young parent, to step back and let your kid face a little bit of adversity. I learned how to play the game with arrogance. Only thing that arrogance is confidence under control.
Kerry, how would you define leadership? What's the number one thing that you would look for in a leader?
Someone that can inspire, someone that can encourage, someone that has courage to be able to take on challenges and to be able to accept challenges with the right accountability, responsibility, and a motivator. You have to be able to motivate and inspire people, because I think being a leader is about developing other leaders. So you look for those characteristics in people or athletes or, in yourself to be that type of leader.
You've been a guy that obviously you had, at McNeese State, NCAA, played in the NFL, came to the CFL, dominated. Now you're coaching back at the NFL. You've probably had lots of experiences over that as a player and as a coach. To see that if there's a lack of leadership, what's the result of that?
It's not good. I think with anything that we do in life, whether it be sports, whether it be business, I think you have to have good leadership. I think where leadership is lacking, success is lacking. You don't have the success that you really need, the productivity that you really need. So I think one of the things you talk about leadership development, a person that's on the top running the organization, is how do you develop men and women into leaders? Because without that, you don't have a voice, you don't have a vision. And I think that's very important when they talk about leadership. You have to have a vision. You have to be able to see something in your mind that other people might not be able to see. And then you have to be able to help them make it a reality.
So going back to your time in 2007 when you came to the Rough Riders organization, of course, at the very top, we had a great leadership with Jim Hobson coming in, and our condolences to Jim's family and the Riders organization with his passing recently. But you had Jim giving great leadership at the very top, and then you had Eric Tillman and Kent Austin from a coaching and management perspective. And then you guys as players, there was a great set of leaders in that locker room. What was it like for, say, a young freshman or rookie to come into that setting, or someone that just got traded kind of early in the season, or even just a free agent signing? What was it like to come in and see that level of leadership that was already in place?
You know what? It is an adjustment for a young guy coming into a locker room. It's an adjustment, but also is a level of comfort, because I think as a young guy, you don't feel that you have to be that guy. You can just kind of fall into line. It's okay to follow if you're following the right people, following the right leaders. And I think for a young guy coming into that Rider locker room, we had a lot of leadership across the board and at every position. So it was easy for a young guy just to come in and fit in and just do his job at the best of his ability. Because when you look at Ken Austin, you look at Eric Tillman, you look at Jim Hobson, from top to bottom, the leadership was in place, and it all trickled down into the locker room as players. So we knew the vision, we knew the goal, and the standard was set. And as players, we felt that we had to uphold the standard and raise it, and that's what we did.
Yeah. That's really neat. I think we talk lots about in coaching this idea of, setting your non-negotiables and setting your standards for your players. But as a coach, you don't want to be the accountability police, for lack of a better term. You want to be able to get your team into a team-led culture, right? Where the players are the ones that are holding that standard and then, driving it forward. And I just, coming from a world of ice hockey where we might have 20 to 24 athletes on a team, and then looking at what, you would have led inside of a Rough Riders locker room with triple that, perhaps at times, it's, that's a different piece. And I'm guessing you must have a larger leadership council, but how would you go about having conversations with teammates to continue to hold those standards? What would that look like?
It's about communication. It's about being clear. It's about being direct. And sometimes being direct, it was some challenges. Sometimes you had to agree to disagree. And, when you have those type of leaders with a strong voice, it was about holding people accountable, but it was also about holding yourself accountable. And sometimes, the arguments, they happen, but it was about being honest. It was about being clear. It was about being direct of where we wanted to go and what direction we wanted to go as a team, that we wasn't going to let anyone step out of line. If you did, we was going to put you in check and let you know this is not the way we're doing it. And if guys didn't buy into it, you know what, they got pushed to the side. And the ones that wanted to be a part of the championship run, they were there. So it's just about having that courage, like I talk about. Sometimes you got to make those tough decisions. Sometimes, it might be a good friend of yours that you got to say, hey, man, we're not doing it that way. And I think that's what's needed when you talk about championship football like we had. It was about the coaches giving ownership to the team. Coaches didn't have to worry about other players stepping out of line because we held guys accountable. And when it got to the point where it was out of our hands, and then you'll see a coach step in and really put his foot down.
That's good stuff. Kerry, let's step back. Let's rewind 25 years. And what influenced you, or who influenced you as a high school athlete, and what did that look like when you're coming up, through probably playing multiple different sports and really just set the tone for you and set that bar really high for you as an athlete?
For me, I was blessed, Barrett, to have great parents that really set the tone for myself and my brothers in our home of what we needed to get accomplished as far as our education in sports. And then I was blessed to be able to, when you think about high school, the coaches that I had in my life to really challenge me and saw, once again, that vision of seeing something in somebody else that they don't see in themselves. The talent and the gifts that I had, the coaches that made sure that they pushed me to the limit because they saw the talent that I had and I was gifted with. So I had a name is Bootsy Wallet was a coach of mine in high school that really pushed me and challenged me to be in the weight room, to train, to get my body ready to be able to play at the highest level. Then I went on to college, to university. I had a couple coaches there, from the strength coach to the head coach, my offensive coordinator, Mike Santiago, rest in peace. Those guys, taught me how to be patient, but also taught me how to work hard and how to believe in myself. And it just kind of kept growing. I just can say I was blessed to have great coaches throughout my career. When you think about Kent Austin, I had him twice. I had him in Ottawa when I first came to the CFL. I had him again in 2007 when we won the championship. The coaches that I had in the NFL, I played multiple positions in the NFL. So it was a lot of people that I don't want to name all the names because I probably forget some, and I don't want to leave anyone out. But a lot of people poured into me the leadership that I have now because they saw something in me that I really didn't see for myself.
Yeah, that's really cool. Going from your time in Seattle and coming up here to the best league in my mind. I know I'm going to get lots of flack for this, but I know the CFL stands for cash flow low and all that other fun stuff, but it really, in my mind, it's the best league. I love it. But coming up to Canada, going to Ottawa, and then coming to Regina, there's probably some part in your back of your head, you're like, man, I guess I'll go up to Canada and play ball. But when I met you in '07, and I remember meeting with you and Matt Dominguez, just trying to get things set up for the season with the chapel program and whatnot. I was blown away at the two of you guys, your leadership and your quality of care for everyone around you. How did you make that adjustment as an athlete? Like, obviously there would have been some disappointment that you're not in the league of the NFL, and now you're coming to the CFL, but you treated it like it was still a world-class situation for you. Talk about that journey and how you adapted so well.
You know what? I was very grateful when I had a chance to go to the CFL in 2003. Had just recently went through a divorce and had a chance to kind of restart my career, and going up to the CFL, I just thought about the great opportunity that I had, that God blessed me with, to be able to continue to play football, continue to chase my dreams. And then, landing in Ottawa, and the chaplain at the time was Ryan Dawson. And it's amazing how, when we first met, one of the first things that he gave me was a team Bible. And I never forget this. He had a business card inside the Bible, and it was bookmarked. And it was bookmarked on Psalms 40, 1-3. And that scripture sticks with me to today. And from that point on, I felt that God had called me and sent me to go to Canada to be a leader and to be able to inspire, because you know how it is at the quarterback position. You have a chance to impact a lot of lives. Mm-hmm. And I just took that challenge on, because I went through some tough times going through a divorce. So I felt that I had an opportunity to really be an impact, to put my light and stand on the hill and let it shine for Christ. So I just took that advantage, and, meeting great people along the way, like the Josh Ronix, the Matt Dominguez, and just really wanting to, not be ashamed to do it, but take pride in honoring God on the platform that He's given us.
Very cool. Yeah. And I know Justin, he's the NFL guy. He's into a bunch of different pools and all that other stuff that I just can't get my head around. But there must be some excitement, for the upcoming year right now. Like, what gets you excited about this coming season with the Bears?
I just coming to a historic organization, a great city. Chicago being the third largest city in the U.S., being around great people, walking into this great organization is about relationships. It's very friendly here, and just a great opportunity to help a franchise get back on top and bring the historic winning tradition back to this organization. Has been exciting for myself and my wife, just to be able to move from Seattle. And I tell you, we've been blessed. Seattle for 4 years was great to us. Not taking anything away from the organization, from Pete Carroll, John Snyder, and those guys that gave me the opportunity and opened the door for me to enter the NFL on the coaching ranks. But it's just been a blessing to go from one great organization to another. And it's very exciting. We got a great coaching staff, just the players, just good people, players, front office. And it's just set up for success. And now it's just, putting the work in and having fun. And like you said, bringing that leadership from top to bottom.
Yeah, that's really cool. My wife and I actually got to be in Chicago this past last summer, I guess, in 2023. And it was my first trip to Chicago, but absolutely loved our time. Didn't get into the stadium, got to be outside of the stadium and just see some of the places downtown. Chicago Athletic Association, I don't know if you've been there yet, but rooftop restaurant's pretty cool. It's a great city. Yeah.
I'm going to put that one on the list. I haven't been there yet.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely going to put that on the list now.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Right across from the Bean.
Okay.
So that's where it's at. But
and you know what? I grew up watching the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
My oldest brother, he is a big time Bears fan, but I remember watching Walter Payton, the Fridge, Jim McMahon. I remember those days. And it's been a blessing. Like in Toronto, I had a chance to play with Jared Payton, Walter Payton's son. So there's just a lot of history here. And to be able to be here at this time of the year, this time of my coaching career, I think it's truly, I've been God sent, and I don't take it for granted. I think God has a plan for me to be able to impact some people, whether it be players, coaching, and when you think about this organization and the Christians that we have within this organization, it's been very delightful.
Really cool.
Kerry, what would you say that you have changed about your mindset and about even your belief system transitioning from a player to a coach? Like what did you think 10 years ago that you've changed your mind on now heading into this coming season?
I think it's more about the way society is, the way the generation is of players. It's about meeting them where they are. When I played in my time, I had some coaches that they didn't really care where you were. It was like, this is how we're going to do it. And basically you figured it out. Well, I think now with the players and the society and this generation is about, hey, you got to go meet them. You got to go meet them where they are and lift them up from there. Because if not, we're in a generation where sometimes some people don't want to climb. They need help climbing. So I think that's where I had to shift my mindset of, it's not the way it was when I played. It's the way it is right now. And how can you find that navigational tool to maneuver and connect with the people? And I think for me, it's about the relationship. It's about the man. It's about the person before we can even coach.
Yeah, that's good. You hit it right on the head. I think, on our first question, Kerry, just, how do you define leadership? And it's that, leaders, your job is to develop other leaders. And it's, I think, it's evident you're doing that. You've done that in Seattle and you did that here with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And I know for those of us that were Rough Rider fans and got an opportunity to watch that Grey Cup championship, we watched your courage throughout that year and especially in that game, I'd say. And then we watched you develop leaders and a young guy like a Darian Durant after you. So you've lived that, and I appreciate you sharing that about your job and how you're going to meet this generation of athlete where they are, and continue to call them up to what's next for them.
And that's what you have to do. Even with Darian Durant, I didn't say a lot to him. He was on the team with myself, Marcus Crandall. I didn't have to say a lot to Darian Durant. I just led by example. So it's knowing your audience, knowing what's needed. I think that's important also as a leader of having a feel for that. For me, it's three big things that I talk about. I talk about personal leadership. It's about myself, developing my health, my fitness to be in the best physical, mental, spiritual mind that I can be, to do leadership development, to be able to develop, walk in and find that one person, grab that one person that you can help develop into a leader. And then I talk about leadership development. You talk about a group, you talk about an organization, you're talking about a group of players, a room of players. How can you develop them as a group? I think, those three things is the way I look at it, starting with myself.
One of the things, Kerry, I want to ask you about is, and I watch this on quarterbacks when you're watching the game, and I just find the mental toughness that quarterbacks seem to show. It's something that we talk to our young athletes at Prairie Hockey Academy a lot on hockey players, and what I mean by some of the mental toughness is even just the body language. I find quarterbacks do an incredible job of leading their team and kind of keeping that offensive charge up, even when there's a drop pass or perhaps an interception or something that just doesn't go their way, a guy ran the wrong route. Not often. You see it the odd time where a guy shows that, maybe a young guy or anything, or maybe more of a college. In hockey, we'll see it. We make a bad pass or a teammate doesn't catch it, or we miss a goalie makes a great save, and we'll get the odd guy that looks up to the sky or hangs his head, sits on the bench and slouches his shoulders, and we're like, hey, you're driving all the energy. Your teams are going with you, right? And just trying to talk to our young athletes that are in high school about those pieces. I'm assuming you had to work lots on mental toughness and NFL quarterbacks. This is something you're probably talking to a lot about, that body language and that. I mean, tell me, is that something you were just born with, or is it something that you had to train?
It's something that you got to train because we all human beings. We all have faults. I think you have to be trained. It has to be trained. You have some of it in you already because God made you. God gifted you with the talent. But playing the game, once again, those disappointments, those tough times help build you. And as you get older, you realize that the stage that you're on, especially when you're playing that pivotal position, and you are the guy or the lady that's the spotlight is on, you have to understand that you have to take on a little bit more than you might deserve. But it comes with that position. And that's why I think you have to build that fortitude. You have to build that foundation of to be able to take heavy loads on your shoulder, be able to take the blame. Because I just think, I think a lot of us are built for it, but we have to train for it also. That's one thing I always preach about, playing the quarterback position. Never show up your teammates as a quarterback because nobody's perfect. Because when you miss that wide open receiver, you don't want him to show you up either. So it's about just humility, and it's not easy. It's not. But once again, I think it goes back to that topic we talked about when we talk about that parent. Let your kids face that adversity and go through tough times because it's going to build strength. It's going to build character. And I think it's something that you just kind of work on daily because it's not easy. Because if you're a competitor and you want to win, frustration comes and sets in. But you have to find a way to channel those emotions and use those emotions in the right way to drive energy into your team and not suck energy out of your team.
Yeah. Thank you. It's good.
Yeah, it's good. We've got a section in our podcast, or a segment in our podcast, that we call Guide and Provide. And it's where we ask our guests to give us like one nugget of information or wisdom for young athletes, one nugget of wisdom for parents of young athletes, and then a nugget of wisdom for a young coach. So let's start off with players, and it doesn't have to be about hockey or football in particular, but just elite level athletes. What is one piece of advice, you going through it as a player yourself, into university, onto pro, what's something advice you'd give to, 17-year-old Kerry in high school?
I think you got to find your purpose. You got to find your why. And when you find it, you got to have the drive and the determination to work for it. Nothing is given in life. Everything is earned. So you have to be willing to make the sacrifice. Make the sacrifice. When I say that, give more than you take. Give more to the sport. Give more of yourself. Make that sacrifice and commitment to what you want to get accomplished. I think that's something that a young athlete needs to understand. It's not going to be easy, but if you work toward it, if you pray for it, if you write it down, write your goals, write your visions down so you can always see it every morning. This is what I want to get accomplished. And then you go out there and you work for it.
Love that. Give more than you take.
Yeah, it's good.
What about parents that are out there, sitting there fretting and worrying about their son or daughter entering into the elite level of performing athletes? What's some advice that you'd be able to drip onto a young parent?
I think for a young parent, as a parent, your job is to raise and to nurture that young kid, whether it's your son or your daughter. It's your job to provide for them. It's your job to encourage the young athletes. It's your job to push them a little bit when they don't want to be pushed. But then it's your job also, I feel, that as a young parent, to step back and let your kid face a little bit of adversity. Mm-hmm. I think right now what parents are doing, especially in the U.S., when adversity hits, they want to pull the kid back instead of keep pushing the kid to let him kind of fight through that adversity. Because I think that's where you find development. That's where you find growth. And for a parent, sometimes it hurts. But I think there's too many parents right now that want to pull their kids back when they face adversity. Adversity is part of it. adversity is what builds character.
Yeah.
I am so grateful and thankful that my mom and my dad, when times got tough, they looked at me and said, "Hey, go fight for it."
It's good. I was listening to a different podcast recently, and the lady on it, a psychologist or something, was talking about some mental performance stuff, but just about how do we develop resiliency in our children, right? Our kids. And she kind of blamed us as parents so often of like removing disappointment from our children. And she's like, hey, you want to develop resilient kids, you need to let them experience disappointment because the world ain't fair.
Yes.
And so let them feel it, let them live in it for a little bit, and then let them get up and fight for it after that, right?
Because, what happens is, I think, when you don't let them feel disappointment in sports and they get into the real world and disappointment hits them, they don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
I think sports is a great tool to help develop people for the world.
Mm-hmm.
I really do believe that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as a young coach, then what advice do you give to a guy that's maybe he's a player that's transitioning into coaching, but maybe it's just a junior, high school football coach or a hockey coach that just wants to kind of keep going and making a difference? What's something that you would be able to give them as a word of advice?
One word, curiosity. Got to stay curious. As a young coach, you got to want to grow. You got to want to learn, especially if you're a guy or a lady that played sports. We all have egos. We all feel that we're that alpha dog, alpha male, alpha female. But when you go into the coaching world, it's not about what you know. Yeah, it's good to have a lot of knowledge, but it's more about how do I convey that message to the athlete that I'm coaching? Because at the end of the day, it's not about what Kerry Joseph knows. It's how can I get that message across to the athletes so they can perform at their highest level. That's what it's about. And that, as a young coach, you have to realize that, you have to understand that, and you have to be able to put your ego to the side. I had Cavis Reed, who was one of my coaches, who was one of the first coaches also in Ottawa when I came into the CFL. When I got ready to go into coaching, he told me, he said, the coaching world is going to be tough because you're going to have to deal with a lot of coaches that have egos. And he hit the nail on the head. So as a young coach, man, put your ego in check, leave it at the door, be ready to learn and grow, and stay curious. That word, curiosity.
Yeah.
I love it. That's a great word.
That's good.
So another segment that we have, our final segment is Grandpa B story time. And it's a chance for Justin and I to share a couple of stories and then have our guest, share, kind of some highlight career moment stories or whatever it might be. But I'm gonna start us off because, I think a lot of our listeners here in Western Canada, especially here in Saskatchewan, 2007 was a big year, right? And you had a big part in that. And I remember back to a game there. I think there was maybe 3 or 4 games left in the season, and we were playing Hamilton. It's a fourth quarter. We're down by 10, and this wild, wicked prairie storm rolls in, and everyone, the refs are like, they blew the whistle, they cleared the field, got you guys into safe spots under the stands or into the locker room. The fans fled to the old concourse of
The bowels of Taylor Field.
to the bowels of the great lady of Taylor Field, and it was one of those moments where we're standing there in the sort of right in front of Gordy's desk and office area, and the referee Ireland, he's got this, he's looking at the monitor trying to figure out, and Eric's down there and trying to determine, is this storm going to pass? And it's probably about 25 minutes had passed. They're getting right down to the final minute. If it wasn't going to be, then the game was going to be called. And all of a sudden on the radar, there was a break in the clouds. And they looked at it and they ran over to Hamilton and said, you guys ready to go? And came running back and instantly Kent comes in and he's got laser focused eyes, and he came in and gave you guys. It's a fourth quarter speech that you usually don't get, but he came in and he challenged you guys to raise the bar. And as he's doing that, Eric grabs the biggest flag on the planet, and he's out there in his trench coat, and it's still pouring rain, but he's running up and down the sidelines, and the crowd is going crazy. And you guys and Kent came running out of the room, and you guys, as much laser focus as he had coming in there to challenge you guys, when you came back out, you guys, like, you did run through a wall, because in that final moments of the game, you guys came storming back. You won the game. And to me, it was a TSN turning point of the season, because like you said earlier, there's a lot of alpha males that were in that locker room at the beginning of the season. Some dominant, great leaders. Like when you think back to, even guys like O'Day and Schultz and Ray Williams, Gino, Matt Dominguez, Mollander, Mo Lloyd, Abu, Chunky, Eddie, twos, gets, doubles, like Reggie. There's so many leaders. Like it's like, honestly, that the whole team's in the honors and on the Wall of Fame and whatnot, but each guy probably could be up there with you in the rafters. How did that alpha male level, how did you guys finally come together and sort that out so you guys can, in time, have your run, the magical run that you had in the playoffs?
I think we had to hit the wall with each other at times. When you talk about egos in the coaching profession, you talk about egos in that locker room, where you had a lot of great players that had a lot of success, and a lot of guys that wanted to win. But kind of like we talked about, we had to hit a little adversity. With the fast start that we had, then we had a couple games that we dropped, faced a little adversity, and instead of pulling away from one another, we found a way to pull together, join together. But I'm telling you, Barrett, if we wouldn't have seen it in our coaches, it probably wouldn't have happened with the players. When you're talking about the standard that Kent Austin, you talk about Richie Hall, you're talking about Ron Estee, you're talking about I'm losing. See, I don't want to. I'm trying to think of all the names, You think about those. You think about those guys and what they brought to the team as leaders. It was easy for us as coaches, as players, to say, you know what, we got to find a way to come together to believe in each other. And when you think about our Grey Cup ring, on the inside, it says believe. And that's one thing that Kent and the coaching staff preached to us was, we got to believe in each other. We might not all like each other, but if we want to get things done and accomplish the things that we want to get accomplished, we got to believe in each other. Yeah. And we figured that out. And when you look at that Storm, that game, that was a pivotal game in our season to be able to come back out. And it's one I would never forget, because of the fact that I remember sitting in that locker room, and you can just hear the people that stayed in that stadium. And when they started stomping on those bleachers, it gives me chills now to know that in the midst of that storm, in the Bible, it says that sometimes in life you got to go through storms. That was our storm that sent us on our way to winning the Grey Cup. And it was just awesome. It was chilling. And was it all smooth? No, it was not. Yeah. We had our fights in the locker room. We had our arguments in the locker room. But I tell you what, when we walked out of that locker room, we was a band of brothers sticking together.
Yeah, for sure. And some of the adversity. So just to remind people, like, you had, to my recollection, you guys had 5 wide receivers break legs in the first 6 weeks or something crazy like that too. Like the level of injuries, and you picked up off the scrap heap out of Calgary some washed up running back by the name of Wes Cates, came over on the practice roster. And I remember his first practice, he's running around. He's still got his Stampeders red shoes on, and Gordy's trying to get him wrapped up so that red wasn't shining through. And it was a time in the province where there were some things that were starting to change, and there was some excitement. But really, at the time, you or me or Justin, whoever had season tickets and you didn't go to the game, you couldn't give them away. Like, people were still not the riders we know now and the organization now that Jim and his crew built it to be. That wasn't the case all year long. Like, there was a lot of doubt, a lot of sort of wringing of hands and like, oh, we got to get someone else and another player. We got to get new coaches. But like you said, that you guys went through the storm. You weathered all of that, and you came through. What moment was it? That storm against Hamilton, or was there another moment in that season where you knew that we actually, if we could get this locker room sorted out, and if we could just keep persevering and follow the leadership of our staff, at what point did you know you had a chance to be Grey Cup champion?
I think it was the Labor Day Classic. And when you think about that game there and everything that it stood for, to be able to win that game in that fashion, the celebration. If I'm not mistaken, I think we went to Winnipeg and lost the next week.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. But it didn't matter, because every time we stepped on the field, we believed we were supposed to win. I think the Labor Day Classic was one that said, like, you know what, this is our time. And we just believed in each other. And that's one thing with Kent Austin. I learned a lot from him, and I learned how to play the game with arrogance. But arrogance is only thing that arrogance is confidence under control. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that Kent taught me of playing the game, believing that way. And he taught us all that we supposed to believe that we're going to win this game. It didn't matter who lined up against us, and we lost some, but it still didn't matter to us, because you know what? It's just a bump in the road to where we want to go. And I think just the Labor Day game, the Labor Day Classic and the Storm game kind of solidified where we wanted to go and what we wanted to get done.
I remember being in Toronto. The 07 Cup, for our listeners, was in Toronto. And again, you guys went on the improbable run. No one at the beginning of the season had you projected to be in that game. And there you were in Toronto. And there's a festival at every Grey Cup. It's a week-long festival. There's, trade shows and all that other stuff going on. And I remember walking down there with a bunch of other players and just hanging out the one night. And there's some contests. You got to change a tire with the DeWalt tool set and win a prize, and, throw a football into a barrel to win a bag of chips or some pop or whatever. And one of the sponsors had that huge hot tub, and the winner of the hot tub wasn't one of us fans. It was the most outstanding player. And I remember being there with you, and I think Palm Dog and maybe even Swamp Dog, Coach Este was there with us too. And I said to you, I said, Kerry, what are you going to do with this hot tub when you win it? And you're like, dude, I'm not even thinking about that. I'm just focused on the game. And you were laser focused, and turns out you won the hot tub. I don't know if you still got that hot tub today or what. How did you even get it from Toronto? So it's kind of one of those moments where I was like, hey, like, there's all this distraction going on, but you guys were absolutely laser focused. And if I recall right, I don't think the other team that you competed against over there in the that other province beside us was all that focused, but you guys were. Yeah. Do you want to just talk about that game in itself?
We finally got there, and that was the big deal for us. We knew we wanted to get accomplished, and for me personally, if I rewind back to 2006 when we lost to BC in the Western Finals, I remember after that game, I walked back out on the field while they were doing the trophy presentation of the Western Finals. And I remember watching that. And I remember the pain, the hurt of losing that game, feeling that I let my team down. And I remember walking off, and I walked right past Fred Perry. And I told him, I said, we coming back next year to here. I said, we're going to beat them, and we're going on to win the Grey Cup. And he kind of looked at me like, what? I said, you heard what I said? So for me, fast forward into that game, when I finally had the chance to be there, I was going to do everything I could to make sure that I was going to help my team carry that trophy off the field. And I think we all went there with that mindset. And once again, it starts with the leadership. Like Kent wasn't playing. I actually, myself and a couple other players had to beg him to, the first night in Toronto, we actually had to beg him to back up curfew 1 hour to give us a little bit more time just to enjoy.
Yeah.
And we just actually, like, Coach, can you give us a little bit more time? It was early in the week, and he cut down the hour as we got close to the game. You had to be in a little bit earlier, and he just showed the leadership that he had and the trust that he had in us as his players.
Yeah.
And we were just locked in, and we knew we wanted to get done, and showed on game day.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I don't have the hot tub anymore. I actually sold it. Never installed it. Got it delivered to my home. Didn't know where I was going to put it. Didn't feel like dealing with it, and I ended up selling it.
But you've got the ring and a better story than a hot tub. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah,
that's for sure.
Kerry, final question for you, just as we wrap up the episode here today. What, when you look back on your career as a player and now as a coach, what's one aha moment that has been like, man, this is all my work as a young kid and all the leaders I've put into my life and whatnot. What's one moment that stands out to you like, man, this is like, I'm so thankful for what God's blessed me with. What is that for you?
Man, I think for me, I think it's the players that you impact that come back and tell you thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I think about Geno Smith in Seattle the last 2 years, who I had a chance to coach, to kind of be like a big brother to him. Mm-hmm. And we had a player-coach relationship, but we almost had like a brother-to-brother relationship. I think about the college athletes that I coached for 4 years, the impact that I was able to make with those young men, being like a father to them. Those things for me are breath of fresh air. Coaches that I help, that I inspire, and even teammates. Tad Cornegay. Mm-hmm. Played in New York last year. Ted was my teammate, mm-hmm. but I really never hung out with him a lot. Ted did his thing, I did my thing, but we had each other back. And for him to come visit with me in New York, sit down at the hotel, have a couple glasses of wine, and just reminisce about our time in Saskatchewan. Those moments are moments that last a lifetime. To be able to share that with your teammates. And those are the things that I cherish the most. The Gene Makowski holding up that Grey Cup trophy for the first time. I didn't want to touch it first. Told him, you touch it. You deserve it. Those moments I hold on to. And for me personally, I've been blessed with the different awards, accolades. This summer coming up, I've been blessed with being inducted into the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame on June 22nd. Just everything God has blessed me with. I don't deserve it. I'm not perfect, wasn't perfect, would never be perfect, but his mercy and grace always lifted me, and I never take it for granted. I'm always grateful for it. So for me right now is how can I help the next person, physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Well said, awesome. Kerry. You were the 2007 CFL Most Outstanding Player, the MOP. But today I think our listeners and Justin and myself understand truly that you're also the most outstanding person, and we're thankful that you've taken time out of your schedule. I know that it's a busy time there with Chicago. And I want to wish you all the best in the upcoming season there with the Bears. I'm sure there's going to be some wild moments in the season, and I know that we've seen the fruit of your labor in the past, and I know that that's going to continue on. You're going to keep being a leader, making a difference in the lives of the young men that come into your program, as well as the seasoned veterans that you have in that locker room. So we wish you all the best, Kerry. we're thankful that, like I said, that you've taken the time to be here with us today, and we really appreciate you.
Thank you guys for having me on. Really appreciate being on with you guys.
Thank you for joining today's episode of the Win All Day Everyday podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, we would just ask that you would give us a review, leave a comment, or share it with a friend. Again, we appreciate your listeners today, and have a great day.